When you think about the pop culture landscape of the late 1970s, it's a chaotic, vibrant mix.
Right. You have everything from the high polish of disco to, these grim urban films like Taxi Driver.
Exactly. Yet if you try to pinpoint one piece of media that defined that era while looking backward, celebrating high school dances, greasers, and singing about summer romance, one title just stands alone.
Grease.
Grease. 47 years later, this 1978 musical romantic comedy isn't just a beloved movie. It is, well, it's an enduring, almost unbelievable monument of cultural and financial power.
It really is.
And we aren't here today to simply walk you through the plot of Danny and Sandy. We're here to understand the mechanisms behind its success.
That is precisely our mission. We've collected a stack of fantastic source material today, a collection of facts, anecdotes, and critical analyses that transforms a familiar viewing experience into a truly fascinating case study.
So what's the objective here?
Our objective is clear. We need to analyze the film's complex history, the absolutely colossal financial success it achieved, the unique, often accidental casting decisions that define the look of Rydell High, and critically, how modern cultural perspectives are continually forcing us to reevaluate its legacy.
It's sort of an intellectual journey, then, from 1950s nostalgia filtered through a 1970s lens.
And seen through a 2024 mirror.
And the place we have to start is establishing the sheer scale of the phenomenon.
Yes.
Because for a long time, it was easy to dismiss Grease as merely, a fun, fluffy piece of nostalgia.
But the numbers tell an entirely different story of unprecedented dominance.
They absolutely do.
The film was an American musical romantic comedy directed by Randall Kleiser, and this was his feature directorial debut.
Which is an astonishing fact given the scale of the production.
It is. It was based, of course, on the 1972 stage musical by Jim Jacobs and Warren Casey. But when it hit the screens, it just exploded.
Let's talk numbers.
Okay, consider the contrast. The production budget was a modest $6 million.
To put that $6 million budget into context for you, that was a manageable, sort of medium-sized feature budget for 1978.
Right. But it went on to gross a truly astronomical $396.3 million worldwide.
So the return on that investment, nearly 66 times the production cost, that was what signaled the dawning of a new type of musical blockbuster.
Exactly. This wasn't just a hit. It completely reset the financial expectations for the genre.
It did, and the resulting historical impact is why it remains so important.
At the time of its initial release, Grease immediately became the highest-grossing musical film of all time.
And that record held for decades.
It did. Furthermore, the film's success was doubled by the music.
That's the key linkage. The soundtrack album closed out 1978 as the second best-selling album of the entire year in the United States.
And the only thing, the single product that managed to beat the Grease soundtrack.
The soundtrack for Saturday Night Fever.
Which means that in 1978, the two best-selling albums in the U.S. were anchored by John Travolta.
That is a level of industry domination that is almost impossible to imagine in today's fragmented media landscape.
It speaks to the absolute star power Travolta possessed at that moment and the strength of the Robert Stigwood organization, which packaged these projects.
And beyond the commercial metrics, which were impressive enough, the film achieved ultimate cultural validation.
It really did. In 2020, Grease was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress.
And that designation is reserved for works considered. What's the phrasing?
Culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
It elevates this high school dance story to the level of classic American cinema. A staggering validation.
It is.
Okay, let's unpack the first segment of our discussion. The surprising history and crafting of the film, focusing on the production process and the what-if moments that define the final cast.
Sounds good.
We mentioned Randall Kleiser, the director, was making his feature debut. He had immense pressure on him, but he also took some real creative liberties with the original stage material.
He did. He shifted the entire environment of the story.
He fundamentally altered the film's DNA in one key regard: location.
Right. The original stage musical was much grittier. It was set in an urban Chicago environment with the fictional Rydell High based on the very real William Howard Taft High School there.
But Kleiser, he decided to shift the setting to a much more idealized suburban locale.
He did.
Why make that change? Was it purely aesthetic or was it personal?
It was highly personal, reflecting his own teenage years at Radnor High School in suburban Philadelphia.
So that shift moved the film away from a raw Chicago street drama.
toward a broader, more accessible, and perhaps more aspirational suburban setting.
This aesthetic decision is critical to understanding why the film works as nostalgia.
Absolutely. It's not nostalgia for a specific gritty neighborhood. It's nostalgia for an idealized, ubiquitous American high school experience, whether you were in Chicago or Philly.
What's equally telling about the power structure of the film is Kleiser's limited control over what is arguably the most crucial element.
The music.
The music. The theme song, Grease, is inseparable from the film's identity, but Kleiser's initial choice for that song was completely overridden.
It was, by the all-powerful producers Robert Stigwood and Alan Carr.
A classic example of studio muscle overpowering the director's artistic preferences.
It was. Kleiser had wanted a song composed by Charles Fox and Paul Williams, but Stigwood and Carr prioritized their own commercial client relationships.
They famously commissioned the ultimate title song from Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees, who was Stigwood's client.
And they did it literally at the 11th hour.
That detail is so insightful. It shows that the film wasn't just a creative endeavor. It was an integrated component of a massive musical empire, the Stigwood Organization.
Which was focused on dominating both the box office and the music charts simultaneously. That song decision was purely commercial leverage.
Precisely. And that same leverage secured the leading man.
Let's move to John Travolta as Danny Zuko. His casting wasn't just a selection, it was a foregone conclusion based on contractual obligations.
Right. Travolta had just achieved stratospheric success in Saturday Night Fever.
So his appearance in Grease was secured because he was part of a 3-picture deal with Robert Stigwood.
This meant the film inherited a global superstar, ensuring its immediate commercial viability before a single scene was even shot.
And here's a beautiful historical loop for Travolta. While he was the biggest star in the world, ready to play Danny Zuko, he was actually intimately familiar with the material.
Oh, how so?
Years earlier, he had played Duty, one of the T-Birds, in a touring production of the stage version of Grease.
So he knew the rhythms in the world of Ride El High long before he played its leader.
Exactly.
But the casting choice that truly defines the what-if conversation in Hollywood history has to be the one who passed.
Henry Winkler.
Of course.
Fonzie.
Winkler, Arthur Fonzie, Fonzarelli on Happy Days, the quintessential greaser character of 1970s television. He was offered the role of Danny Zuko.
And his reasoning for turning it down was rooted in a profound fear of being typecast. That's right. He felt Fonzie had already cemented him as the greaser archetype, and he worried that playing Danny Zuko would irrevocably pigeonhole him.
It's a decision he later openly regretted.
It is. It speaks volumes about the challenges actors faced in the transition from television to film in that era.
He was trying to diversify his profile.
Yeah.
And he sacrificed what would become one of the biggest films of all time to avoid the greaser label.
A painful irony. And then you have the casting of Sandy Olsen, which came down to pure chance and significant negotiation.
Producer Alan Carr selected Olivia Newton-John after a serendipitous encounter at a soiree hosted by singer Helen Reddy.
That's the story.
What's interesting is the list of women who were almost Sandy, because it shows the producers were aiming for a specific blend of singing ability and fresh cinematic star power.
They considered Carrie Fisher, who was riding the monumental wave of Star Wars at the time.
But they rejected her.
Why?
Because they weren't sure she could sing.
Other major contenders included Anne Margaret, Deborah Raffin, and Susan DeHare. And perhaps the most famous close call was Marie Osmond.
Why did Marie Osmond walk away? She certainly had the musical chops and the clean image that Sandy embodies at the start of the film.
She walked away because she realized the extent of Sandy's transformation into a leather-clad rebel in the final act.
So that final scene was just too much for her.
For Osmond, who was highly focused on maintaining a very specific, wholesome public image, that transformation was simply too much for her comfort level. She was unwilling to make that shift.
Which tells you how radical Sandy's ending identity change was considered at the time.
Right. So enter Olivia Newton-John. She was 28 years old at the time.
Which she was deeply concerned about, worrying she was too old to convincingly play a high school student.
And she also had very limited acting experience, which led her to request a screen test before she would accept the part.
And she used that apprehension and her growing musical reputation to gain substantial leverage in the negotiations.
She did. She agreed to a reduced asking price, But in exchange, she secured star billing and, crucially, the right to rewrite the script regarding Sandy's background.
This resulted in two significant changes.
First, Sandy became an Australian immigrant, which meant Newton-John didn't have to struggle with an American accent.
Yeah, second.
The character was made much less passive overall. She demanded agency.
That's a profound detail. It's not just about her background. It's about her asserting control over the character's narrative trajectory.
Making her a more active participant in the story from the start.
And if you look at the aftermath of the film, there's a fantastic case of life imitating art that goes beyond the screen.
Following Sandy's radical transformation at the end of the film, Olivia Newton-John's very next album was called Totally Hot.
That album was a total departure for her.
It was. It featured a much more sexualized, pop-oriented approach, moving away from her country pop roots.
And she appeared on the album cover in similar all-leather attire and teased hair.
That directly mirrored Sandy's iconic climactic look. The film didn't just transform Sandy Olsen, it gave Olivia Newton-John a new, immensely successful career phase.
Moving on to another key Pink lady, Stockard Channing as Rizzo. Her age presented an even greater challenge than Newton-John's.
It did, and the director had to implement very specific techniques to maintain the illusion of youth.
Channing was 33 when filming started, making her the oldest cast member playing a student.
The sources reveal that director Randall Kleiser was so concerned about the age difference being visible on screen, he implemented what the cast referred to as a crow's feet test for close-ups.
Tell us more about what that entailed.
Essentially, the cinematographer, Bill Butler, was instructed to use extremely soft focus or specific lighting on the faces of the older actors during close-ups.
The goal was to blur or soften any lines or signs of age that might break the illusion that these 30-somethings were teenagers.
Exactly. This detail speaks to the lengths the production went to preserve the film's fantasy world.
And Channing's contribution went beyond just looking the part. She had to fight for one of the most serious and complex musical moments in the entire film.
She did. Stockard Channing successfully lobbied to keep her key ballad, "There Are Worse Things I Could Do," in the score.
And she did that over significant objections from producer Alan Carr.
Right. This song is crucial because it gives Rizzo a moment of deep vulnerability, addressing her fears of being judged and dismissed.
But Carr, focused on the film being a lighthearted romp, found the song too serious.
Too dark, maybe too challenging for the audience. Channing understood that the song was essential for giving Rizzo, the tough girl, a necessary layer of humanity.
And her successful defense of the number enriched the entire film.
It did.
Turning our attention now to the adult and supporting roles. The casting here is littered with incredibly famous near misses and fascinating replacements.
Let's start with the iconic teen angel, played by Frankie Avalon.
The initial ambition for that role was incredible.
The sources confirm that Elvis Presley was seriously considered for the role of the teen angel.
But tragically, he died before production could commence.
This is a massive what if Elvis returning to the screen to sing a heavenly song to a high school girl in a pink wig.
Donny Osmond was also considered, as was Frankie Valli.
Frankie Valli, who, of course, ended up singing the title theme song.
Exactly. Valli was presented with a choice. He could either appear as the teen angel, or he could sing the theme song Grease, written by Barry Gibb.
And Valli chose the theme song. He believed that commercially it was the stronger piece of music and more likely to be a massive hit.
A decision that was clearly correct.
It was, and Valli noted later that both he and Frankie Avalon ultimately benefited from this arrangement.
Avalon's appearance as the teen angel, a nod to his 1950s teen idol status, revived his career on the nostalgia circuit.
It confirmed the film's role as a major retro vehicle.
And speaking of replacements, let's discuss Coach Calhoun.
Played by Sid Caesar, a massive veteran of 1950s television comedy.
But he was a very late replacement for an actor whose background caused a major panic among the executives.
Adult film star Harry Reams.
That is a stunning case of casting ambition and corporate fear colliding. What was the executive concern?
Paramount executives vetoed Reams's casting for purely financial reasons. They were concerned that Reams's well-known reputation as a porn star would severely hinder box office returns.
Specifically in conservative regions like the southern United States.
Right. The executives decided that to protect the enormous profit potential they already saw in the film, they needed to replace him with a universally accepted comedic veteran like Sid Caesar.
It shows you the calculated risk avoidance happening at the highest levels of the studio.
They were prioritizing market appeal over a potentially interesting, edgy casting choice.
That decision underscores the film's fundamental marketing strategy. It had to appeal broadly to a family audience, despite some of its more risque themes.
And the casting trend also brought in a slew of other 1950s television veterans: Eve Arden, Joan Blondell, Ed Burns, Alice Ghostley, and Dodie Goodman, further cementing that deliberate nostalgic connection.
And we must loop back to Jeff Conaway, who played Kenneke.
He was an experienced Broadway Danny Zuko, but he experienced the sharp end of the leverage dynamic we discussed earlier when it came to one of the film's most famous numbers.
Re-Slayton.
Exactly. Conaway, as Kenneke, was originally supposed to perform that song, as he did on stage.
The song belongs to Kenneke, the car enthusiast.
It does. But due to John Travolta's immense influence, secured through his deal with Stigwood, the number was ultimately taken from Kenneke and given to Danny.
This is a crucial detail for understanding the production. Star power didn't just dictate casting.
It dictated the narrative flow of the musical numbers themselves. Conaway settled for a smaller, non-singing role in the scene.
A clear indication of where the power resided on set.
No question.
Okay, let's transition now to the soundtrack. As we've established, it was an absolute commercial juggernaut, ending 1978 as the second best-selling album in the country.
And the strategic deployment of the music was as brilliant as the film's casting.
It was a masterclass in cross-platform marketing, designed to generate massive momentum before the film even opened.
Right. Consider You're the One That I Want. This song, a new composition not in the original stage show, was released as a single before the film's debut.
So the audience was listening to this enormous immediate chart topper without having seen Danny and Sandy's iconic final sequence.
It must have created immense anticipation. It became an immediate global chart topper, providing massive early marketing leverage.
The success of that song guaranteed millions of people were already invested in the film's music and star pairing months before they ever bought a movie ticket.
And the endurance of that music is staggering, particularly in the UK.
The numbers are still astonishing. The two Travolta-Newton-John duets, You're the One That I Want, and Summer Nights, are both still counted among the 30 best-selling singles of all time in the UK.
We're talking number 5 and number 28, respectively, as of the 2018 metrics. That is sustained multi-generational purchasing power.
It truly is.
And the Frankie Valli title track, Grease, achieved #1 status, securing Valli's choice to sing over acting.
And we can't forget the original ballad added specifically for Olivia Newton-John, Hopelessly Devoted to You,
which achieved immense critical acclaim, earning a nomination for an Academy Award for Best Original Song.
The film generated 4 distinct, massive global hit singles, which is a rarity even for the most successful movie musicals.
Absolutely.
Beyond the sheer success, the changes made to the stage musicals, lyrics, and character songs often reflected a direct response to current events or the structure of the film.
One of the most famous and poignant lyric changes occurred in the Pink Ladies group number, Look at Me, I'm Sandra Dee.
In the original stage version, Rizzo's cynical line refers to the actor Sal Mineo.
Right. However, Mineo had been murdered a year prior to filming commencing.
So the line was altered for sensitivity and relevance.
Yes. The line was changed to refer to Elvis Presley instead, who was at the time still alive but already deeply established as a historical figure of the 1950s era. The film was romanticizing.
But here is the bizarre, tragic confluence of history.
You're referring to the day that scene was filmed.
Exactly. The filming of that specific scene, along with the scene immediately preceding it and the scene immediately following it, all took place on August 16th, 1977.
That was the date of Elvis Presley's sudden death.
The film had just recorded a line about Elvis, only for the world to discover that very day that he was gone.
It's an unplanned intersection between a major pop culture tragedy and a cinematic production relying on that very culture.
That detail adds an accidental layer of solemnity to what is supposed to be a fun, frivolous moment.
It really does.
We discussed earlier how Greased Lightnin' was controversially taken from Kenneke and given to Danny. But the film also condensed the original musical significantly.
Right, writing out many other numbers to streamline the plot.
The film focused laser-like on the 4 central singing leads: Danny, Sandy, Rizzo, and the teen angel.
This meant many character-driven numbers from the stage had to go. For instance, the T-Bird character Roger, who had songs like Mooning and Rock and Roll Party Queen.
He was effectively demoted in the film, replaced by the non-singing Pootsie.
Right. And Marty Maraschino's song, Freddie My Love, was also cut from the film's visual narrative, though it did remain on the soundtrack album.
So this centralization of musical power, focusing the songs on the leads, who also happened to be the biggest commercial draws. That was another deliberate choice.
A choice to maximize the film's appeal as a soundtrack vehicle. The stage version was much more of an ensemble piece.
But the film was tailored to its stars.
It's a transition from a theatrical narrative structure to a cinematic star vehicle, and the enormous commercial returns validate that strategy completely.
Let's shift our focus to the physical production itself, the behind-the-scenes world of locations, editing, and corporate battles over brand visibility.
The physical geography of Rybell High is fascinating because, despite the seamless look of the film, it's completely scattered across the Los Angeles area.
It required massive logistical coordination to stitch together what looks like a single campus and neighborhood.
It did.
Where did we actually see Danny and Sandy meet in the opening scene?
That classic summer romance scene, which starts the entire story, was filmed at Malibu's Leo Carrillo State Beach.
And the use of this specific beach was an explicit, subtle nod by the director to the famous beach scene in the classic film From Here to Eternity.
Exactly. Consciously placing Greece within a lineage of cinematic beach romances.
And the high school itself was a collage of different buildings, right?
Precisely. The exterior Rydell scenes, the track, the auto shop, the bleachers where they sing Summer Nights were shot at Venice High School during the summer of 1977.
But the moment they went inside, for instance, for the grand high school dance sequence,
They moved locations entirely, shooting those interiors at Huntington Park High School.
even the final climactic carnival scene was shot at yet another distinct location.
John Marshall High School in Los Feliz.
So no one location was actually Rydell High. It was a patchwork constructed to look like a perfect suburban campus.
It's the illusion of Hollywood. Meanwhile, key studio-bound musical numbers that required elaborate sets or specific controlled environments,
Like the Frosty Palace, the Greased Lightning number.
and the ethereal Beauty School Dropout were all filmed on the Paramount studio lot.
Now let's drill down into the Frosty Palace, because that location was the center of a major corporate dispute involving product placement.
It led to some rather desperate post-production measures.
This is one of the best industry anecdotes from the entire production.
It is. Producer Alan Carr had struck a lucrative product placement deal with PepsiCo, Coca-Cola's primary competitor.
However, when Carr finally viewed the footage of the iconic Frosty Palace scene, he saw obvious Coca-Cola signs, logos, and products literally everywhere on set.
That must have caused a tremendous panic.
It did. Carr immediately ordered director Randall Kleiser to either completely reshoot the entire sequence, replacing all Coke branding with Pepsi, or to remove the logos entirely.
And given the budget constraints and the actors' availability, reshoots were deemed prohibitively expensive and impossible.
So how did they resolve this massive corporate problem?
They resorted to a painstaking post-production technique using optical mats. Essentially, they manually masked over or blurred out every visible trademarked menu signage and a large wall poster advertising Coca-Cola.
A massive technical headache caused by a breakdown in communication between the set decorators and the producers.
That's right, but the sources mention one specific piece of Coca-Cola branding that they couldn't successfully hide.
What was that?
A distinctive red cooler with the Coca-Cola logo. It could not be sufficiently altered through blurring without making the entire scene look ridiculous.
So they had to leave it untouched.
They did. Kleiser later recalled that they simply hoped Pepsi would overlook that single item, which, thankfully for Paramount, they did.
It's a physical testament to the early chaos of integrating corporate sponsorships into film.
It is.
Shifting to another fascinating post-production detail. The famous lost kiss scene between Danny and Sandy.
Yes, a very well-known element of missing cinema. A closing scene immediately following the final carnival number where Danny and Sandy shared a simple kiss.
It was intended to be the final shot before they flew off.
Right. However, due to a confirmed editing error, the scene was removed from the finished film, and critically, the actual color film print of that shot was lost before the theatrical release.
So the scene itself was preserved only in a secondary format.
It was only preserved in a black and white copy. Director Kleiser was very disappointed with the initial attempts to colorize this footage for the film's major 1998 re-release.
He felt it didn't match the original print quality, so it wasn't reinserted.
Correct. However, the black and white footage was included as an extra feature on the 40th anniversary home video release.
And Kleiser has expressed an ongoing desire and hope that technology will allow for effective, high-quality colorization.
By the time the film's 50th anniversary arrives in 2028, finally allowing the film to be seen as he originally intended.
It's incredible that a movie that generated so much revenue still has this little important piece of its narrative missing due to a simple post-production accident.
It really is.
The history and production details are fascinating, but the box office records and the film's sheer commercial endurance are perhaps even more compelling.
The film's initial dominance upon its release in June 1978 signaled a shift in how musicals were perceived by Hollywood.
It was an immediate, overwhelming blockbuster, even though it didn't open at #1.
Right, it was second right behind Jaws 2, but it quickly took over the box office conversation.
Within its first 19 days, it set an incredible record gross of over $40 million.
That was astronomical for the time and showed that the audience was hungry for this kind of fun, energetic escapism.
And it continued to break institutional records for Paramount Pictures, competing directly with some of the most critically acclaimed dramas of the decade.
During a 1979 reissue, Grease actually overtook Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather to become Paramount Pictures' highest-grossing film up to that point.
Think about the cultural weight of that. A lighthearted musical knocking off a monumental cinematic epic.
It underscores that Grease was far more than just a passing fad. It was a financial powerhouse.
It finished 1978 as the highest-grossing film of the year overall.
And its global performance set a nearly unbreakable benchmark for the genre.
It did. Grease held the record for the highest-grossing live-action musical globally until 2012.
When it was finally surpassed by Les Miserables.
And it held the domestic U.S. title until 2017.
When Disney's live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast took the crown.
Even today, discounting inflation, Grease remains the 7th highest-grossing live-action musical worldwide.
That enduring ranking is a testament to its initial explosive appeal.
What's equally significant is how the film sustains its revenue stream, which isn't just reliant on that initial 1978 run.
Right. Paramount has learned that Grease is a repeatable commercial product through continuous reissues.
They realized very quickly that this film was a source of guaranteed revenue. It was re-released in 1979.
Again in 1998 for its 20th anniversary. That single 1998 re-release grossed an additional $28 million domestically.
And again for its 40th anniversary in 2018.
The film has the unique ability to draw new generations of viewers while maintaining the loyalty of the original audience.
And we saw this commercial power pivot into a cultural tribute very recently, following the tragic passing of Olivia Newton-John in 2022.
It became an instrument of memorial. In August 2022, following her death from breast cancer, AMC theaters reissued the film in select locations, but with a charitable mandate.
They announced they would donate $1 per ticket sold directly to breast cancer research.
And Merlin Cinemas in the UK followed suit, partnering with Macmillan Cancer Support.
This demonstrates how the film has transcended its commercial origins to become a vehicle for collective memory and positive social action.
A beautiful transition from pure entertainment product to a living tribute.
And for the audience at home, accessibility has never been an issue, ensuring the continuous stream of cultural relevance.
Absolutely. The film was first released on VHS back in 1979, keeping it constantly available in the home.
This continued all the way up through its 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray release for the 40th anniversary in 2018.
Grease has never been allowed to go out of print or fade from public view, which is a major reason why it continues to command such high revenue in cultural space.
Now we arrive at one of the most intellectually compelling aspects of this phenomenon.
Its initial, surprisingly mixed critical reception, followed by its ultimate canonical placement and the intense cultural reassessment it faces today.
The initial disparity between critic and audience enthusiasm is truly telling.
It is. Despite the box office explosion, the film maintains a modest 65% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes today, with a 70 out of 100 on Metacritic.
So critics were very clearly divided on the film's quality and intent.
Very divided. The positive reviews focused on the film's energy and fun. Vincent Canby of the New York Times, for example, called it terrific fun.
He described it as a multi-million-dollar evocation of 1950s B-picture quickies, suggesting it succeeded precisely because it was celebrating a low-budget, high-energy style.
Gene Siskel was another prominent admirer, specifically highlighting the strength of the musical numbers. He noted that 4 of the songs were genuine showstoppers that, in his opinion, deserved applause.
And the audience was clearly in agreement with this perspective. Grease was pure, exhilarating fun.
But the negative critiques were blistering, and they went right to the heart of the film's aesthetic and thematic purpose.
Charles Champlin of the Los Angeles Times was highly critical, calling the movie strident, cluttered, uninvolving and unattractive.
His core complaint was that the film distorted the relatively innocent 1950s, the period being portrayed through a grotesquely distorting 70s consciousness.
That is a crucial analysis. Champlin argued that the film failed because it wasn't an accurate reflection of the 1950s.
It was the 1970s imposing its sensibility, its cynicism, its style, and its sexual frankness onto a past era, thereby corrupting the nostalgia.
Gary Arnold of the Washington Post similarly panned it, even calling the look of the film ugly.
He did.
It's important to note, too, that even the positive reviews often conceded that the film wasn't perfect, frequently singling out John Travolta's performance as the key saving grace.
The factor that made the film watchable and compelling.
Yet, despite this initial critical skepticism, the film has achieved undeniable canonical placement.
Which shows that the audience's judgment ultimately dictated its legacy over the critics.
We can quantify that canonical status. It was voted the best musical ever in the UK by Channel 4 in 2004.
And the AFI, the American Film Institute, has recognized it repeatedly.
It's number 97 in AFI's 100 Years, .110 Passions, number 20 in AFI's Greatest Movie Musicals.
And Summer Nights is listed at number 70 in AFI's 100 Years, .100 Songs.
This means that a generation later, the film is seen as one of the great American musicals.
This is where the story gets really interesting for today's learner because the film's cultural effect continues to evolve.
The modern lens is prompting a comprehensive critical reassessment of the film's content,
focusing on elements that are now viewed as discriminatory or problematic through the ethical framework of the 21st century.
And the primary focus of this modern critique seems to revolve around themes of gender identity, sexism, and sexual behavior.
Absolutely. The strongest criticism is leveled against the film's ending, specifically Sandy's transformation.
Critics like Kristen Baldwin have explicitly called the ending decidedly unfeminist.
The argument here is that Sandy, the wholesome, innocent heroine, only gains acceptance and love from Danny Zuko after she completely jettisons her established identity.
Changing her hair, wearing leather, and taking up smoking to conform to Danny's expectations of a rebellious girl.
Right. The critique suggests the film sends an unfortunate message that self-identity must be sacrificed for male approval.
That critique hinges on the idea that the film's climax is not about mutual growth, but about capitulation by the female lead.
Precisely. And this discourse reached a fever pitch in 2020 following a showing of the film on the BBC.
Which drew renewed and extensive complaints from viewers about specific scenes and lyrics being described as rapey and sexist.
It did.
It's vital we report impartially on the nature of these complaints, so the listener understands the substance of the modern debate.
Okay. So, critics and viewers cited several moments. In terms of lyrics, the controversy focuses on the song Summer Nights.
Particularly the line Danny sings, "Did she put up a fight?" when describing his attempts to get fresh with Sandy.
In the context of the modern Me Too era, that lyric is viewed by many as trivializing a lack of consent.
Furthermore, critics point to the scene at the drive-in theater.
Yes, where Danny attempts to become physically intimate with Sandy, and when she resists and asks him to stop, he becomes angry.
And throws a milkshake at her before driving off and leaving her alone.
That scene, specifically, is often cited as a demonstration of toxic male entitlement and emotional manipulation, which is a key part of the modern critique.
It is. Viewers have also pointed to Kenicki's casual attitude toward Rizzo's pregnancy scare.
And the general objectification of women throughout the T-Birds' interactions. Bryn Gelbart summed up this view by stating that the film preaches an unfortunate message and hasn't aged well under scrutiny.
However, this critique has also generated a strong counter-argument,
with some analysts defending the film by arguing that it is being unfairly judged by standards that did not exist in 1978 or even in the 1950s it portrays.
Joe Hildebrand, for example, defended the film by arguing that the film itself is not sexist or offensive.
Instead, he argued, its characters say and do horrible sexist and offensive things, reflecting the reality that they are a lot like, well, people.
The defense suggests that the film is a satirical or realistic portrayal of imperfect high schoolers, not a moral instruction manual.
That's the counterpoint.
And we know Olivia Newton-John weighed in on this cultural debate herself, expressing her perspective on the intent of the film.
She called the comments silly and maintained that the film isn't meant to be taken so seriously.
This reflects the tension between a work intended as lighthearted nostalgia and modern audiences who demand that cultural products meet contemporary ethical standards.
The ongoing passionate nature of this debate proves that Greece's cultural significance continues to be immensely potent.
Despite the controversies and decades of reevaluation, the desire to revisit Danny and Sandy's world and the immense commercial value of the Grease intellectual property have ensured the continuing legacy of the franchise.
The first and least successful attempt to continue the story was the sequel, Grease 2, released in 1982.
This film shifted focus to a new set of high school students, starring Maxwell Caulfield and a very young Shel Pfeiffer.
Right, her first major role. And when Patricia Birch, the original film's choreographer, directed it, few of the original T-Birds or Pink Ladies reprised their roles.
Though several Rydell High staff members did return.
They did, but the sequel failed to capture the magic or the financial success of the original.
And it was widely criticized, even by the original creators.
It was. Jim Jacobs, who co-created the original stage musical, publicly disowned the film.
Which illustrates the inherent difficulty in replicating that specific lightning-in-a-bottle combination of cast, music, and nostalgia.
Exactly. The 1978 version was a smash hit that was very hard to follow.
However, the world of Grease has found continued relevance on the small screen, showing that the setting and themes still resonate globally.
We've seen international adaptations, such as Somos Tuyo in Venezuela in 2009, a series that explored and expanded the characters and story locally.
And more notably, Fox aired Grease Live in 2016.
A massive live television special that combined elements from both the 1978 film and the original Broadway show, attempting to create a comprehensive version of the material.
And that adaptation was critically and commercially successful.
Immensely so. Grease Live received positive reviews and earned 10 Emmy nominations, with Vanessa Hudgens notably receiving widespread praise for her performance.
It proved that the core story, when treated with high production value, could still captivate a modern audience.
It did.
And then we saw the most recent attempt to expand the franchise's mythology through a streaming prequel series,
which ran into significant modern industry challenges. This was the prequel series Grease, Rise of the Pink Ladies.
It was originally conceived as Grease, Rydell High for HBO Max before migrating to Paramount Plus Week.
The series premiered in April 2023 and released 10 episodes, aiming to explore the origins of the Pink Ladies. However, despite being a high-profile spin-off, its life was short.
It was canceled and, quite controversially, withdrawn from public availability by Paramount Plus in June 2023.
The controversial withdrawal of content, essentially erasing it from the streaming platform, is a major trend in modern media economics.
It is. It shows that even with globally recognized intellectual property, streaming services are making difficult economic decisions based on viewership metrics and long-term costs.
And those decisions can override artistic merit or audience appeal. The abrupt removal of Rise of the Pink Ladies is an ironic counterpoint to the original film's eternal accessibility.
Despite these setbacks, the commercial appetite for new Grease content remains strong, evidenced by the pending prequel project.
Focusing on the most famous summer romance in film history.
In 2019, Paramount Players announced the development of a prequel film called Summer Lovin'.
This project is intended to focus specifically on Danny and Sandy's initial summer romance before they arrive at Rydell High.
It was being written by John August.
But as of August 2024, there has been no significant public word on the project's development.
Which suggests that while the commercial desire is there, the complexities of getting the creative vision right for such an iconic story continue to challenge producers.
It's a high bar to clear.
When we look at the complete picture of Grease, from the sheer luck and contractual leverage that secured its iconic leads, to the complex logistical and corporate battles fought during production.
The immense financial power that made it a global record breaker, and the continuously evolving critical conversation, it is clear that this is a uniquely powerful piece of pop culture history.
It's a work that broke records as a clever, high-energy throwback to 1950s B-picture quickies.
Yet its enduring relevance and continued financial viability rely entirely on its capacity for continuous reevaluation and adaptation, from sing-along theatrical versions to live television specials and even high-profile cancellations.
Which raises one final provocative thought for you to consider. This film's entire premise relies on high schoolers figuring out who they are and who they want to be, often by copying or transforming themselves.
A very common high school experience.
What does it say about a culture when a 47-year-old high school romance about identity, conformity, and transformation still prompts such passionate, often contradictory debate and continuous recreation across every media platform?
It suggests that the core themes of identity and nostalgia, particularly when filtered through high school, remain deeply unresolved and endlessly compelling for us all.
We'll leave that thought hanging in the air for you to explore.
Indeed.
Thanks for listening.